The great council chamber floated in the darkness of space, a massive station that had witnessed 12,000 years of galactic history. Inside its gleaming halls, representatives from 47 different species gathered to discuss the greatest crisis their civilization had ever faced. The air hummed with translation devices, converting hundreds of languages into something everyone could understand. Commander Zixthor stood before the assembled leaders, his crystalline body catching the light and scattering it across the polished floor. He had seen 30 battles in his lifetime, but nothing like this. The enemy they called the Scourge had already destroyed 3 entire civilizations. Billions of lives were gone, turned to ash and memory in a matter of weeks. "We are losing this war," Zixthor said, his voice steady despite the fear that gripped his hearts. "The Scourge adapts to every weapon we use. They learn from every battle. Our fleets cannot stop them. We need help from every corner of the galaxy. Even the forgotten regions. Elder Vrensha, a being of pure energy, contained in a shimmering magnetic field, pulsed with doubt. She had led the council for 200 years, and had never seen such devastation. "The outer regions are empty, Commander. Those sectors were abandoned thousands of years ago. There is nothing there but dead colonies and ancient ruins." What the council did not know was that the outer regions were not as empty as they believed. Far beyond their territories, in a spiral arm they had long ago marked as forbidden, a blue and green planet called Earth spun quietly around its yellow sun. On that world, humanity had just achieved something remarkable. They had broken the light barrier. Captain Jake Morrison walked onto the bridge of the UNS Defiance and felt a surge of pride. The ship was humanity's first real warship designed for deep space combat. It had taken 50 years of work, countless failures, and the combined effort of every nation on Earth to build it. 200 crew members worked at their stations, each one trained for a mission that no human had ever attempted before. "Lieutenant Carter, what do we have?" Jake asked, settling into the command chair. He was a tall man with gray at his temples and eyes that had seen too many conflicts back on Earth. But this was different. This was about humanity's future among the stars. Amy Carter looked up from her communication station, her face pale. She had been listening to the strange signals for 6 months now, ever since Earth's deep space arrays had first detected them. "Captain, I have confirmed the translation. Multiple alien species are calling for help across at least 30 star systems. There is an enemy force they call the Scourge. According to the messages, this enemy has already wiped out 3 civilizations in the past 4 months." The bridge went quiet. Everyone had known about the signals, but hearing it confirmed made it real. Humanity had barely left their own solar system, and already they faced a choice that would define their species for generations to come. Jake turned to his navigation officer, a young man named Chris Palmer, who had the best instincts for space travel Jake had ever seen. "How long to reach the nearest battle zone?" Chris worked quickly, his fingers dancing across his display. 72 hours at maximum slip drive speed, sir." "But Captain, we don't know what we're flying into. This could be a trap or a misunderstanding. We might start an interstellar war just by showing up, or we might save lives," Jake replied. He stood and looked around at his crew. These were people who had volunteered for this mission, knowing they might never come home. They were soldiers, scientists, engineers, and dreamers. They were the best humanity had to offer. "We spent our entire history fighting each other on Earth. We nearly destroyed ourselves a dozen times. But we also learned something important. When someone calls for help, you answer. Set the course, Chris. Let's go meet our neighbors." The Defiance slipped into faster-than-light travel, leaving Earth's solar system behind. In the cargo bays, soldiers checked their weapons and armor. In the medical bay, doctors prepared for casualties. In engineering, teams made sure every system was running perfectly. Everyone knew this mission could change everything. Back on the council station, the debate continued. Species argued about resources and strategies. while the Scourge moved closer to their core worlds. Commander Thor listened to the endless discussions and felt frustration building in his chest. They were running out of time. "We should access the Forbidden Archives," suggested a representative from the Kelnar species. A being that looked like a floating jellyfish, made of silver light. "Perhaps the old records contain information about weapons or tactics we have forgotten." Elder Vrensha pulsed with alarm. "Those archives are sealed for good reason. They contain dangerous information about species that no longer exist, species that destroyed themselves or were too violent to join civilized space." "We are desperate," the Kelnar replied. "Desperate times require desperate measures." The council voted, and the motion passed by a narrow margin. Deep in the station's core, ancient systems came to life for the first time in 10,000 years. Data that had been locked away began to flow into the council's computers. Among the files were stories about a species called humans, beings from a deathworld who had once fought in a great war. The records painted them as both heroes and monsters, creatures of incredible violence and surprising compassion. But the council had classified these records as mythology long ago. They were just stories, warnings about what happened when a species became too warlike. No one believed humans had actually existed. The idea that intelligent life could evolve on a world as hostile as Earth was considered impossible by modern science. The Defiance traveled through the darkness between stars, while Earth's government broadcast a message to the entire planet. Humanity was no longer alone in the universe, and they were going to war to help species they had never met. Some people celebrated. Others protested. But everyone understood that nothing would ever be the same again. Jake stood in his quarters, looking at a photo of his family back on Earth. His daughter had asked him why he had to go, why he had to leave them to fight in someone else's war. He had told her the truth. Because it was the right thing to do. Because if humanity wanted to be part of the galactic community, they had to prove they were worth knowing. Because somewhere out there, people were dying, and Earth had the power to help. The ship's AI announced that they would arrive at the Talvoran system in 12 hours. Jake returned to the bridge and found his crew ready. They had run simulations and studied every scrap of information they could gather from the alien signals. They had prepared as best they could. Now, they would find out if it was enough. "All hands, this is the captain," Jake announced over the ship-wide communication system. "In 12 hours, we make first contact with alien species. We do not know if they will welcome us or fear us. We do not know if our weapons will be effective or if our tactics will work. But we know who we are. We are human beings, and we do not abandon those in need. Whatever happens next, make Earth proud." The Defiance raced toward its destiny, while the galaxy remained unaware that its oldest legends were about to become very real. The Scourge fleet appeared like a disease spreading across the stars. Their ships were wrong in ways that made even veteran warriors feel sick. The vessels looked organic, grown rather than built, with surfaces that pulsed like living tissue. Green light leaked from cracks in their hulls, and they moved with purpose that spoke of a single controlling intelligence. Admiral Kethra watched from her command ship as the enemy emerged from their version of faster-than-light travel. She was a Praxian, a species with 4 arms and skin that shifted colors based on her emotions. Right now, her skin showed deep blue, the color of determination mixed with fear. Her fleet of 300 ships formed defensive lines across the Talvoran system, protecting 5 billion civilians on the planets below. The tactical display showed the terrible truth. The Scourge outnumbered them 3-1, and those numbers did not account for the enemy's ability to adapt. Every weapon the allied species used, the Scourge learned to counter within hours. Every tactic was met with a response that seemed almost prescient. Fighting them was like fighting a learning computer that got smarter with every exchange. "All ships, begin evasive pattern Delta," Kethra commanded, her 4 hands moving across different control panels with practiced ease. "Target their command Nexus vessels. If we can disrupt their coordination, we might have a chance." The battle began with waves of missiles and energy beams crossing the empty space between the fleets. The defenders fought with courage, born of desperation. They knew that if they failed here, the scourge would move on to the next system, and the next, consuming the galaxy one world at a time. The UNS Defiance dropped out of slip drive at the edge of the battle zone. The scene that greeted them was chaos. Explosions bloomed like deadly flowers in the void. Ships twisted and burned. The communication channels were filled with screams and orders in languages that the human translation software struggled to interpret. Combat stations, Jake ordered calmly, though his heart raced. Amy, try to contact the defending fleet. Let them know we are here to help. Weapons, charge all systems. Chris, take us in at combat speed. Lieutenant Ryan Foster sat at the weapons console, his hands steady despite the adrenaline flooding his system. He was looking at target data that would give any sane person nightmares. The enemy ships seemed to violate the laws of physics, moving in ways that should not be possible. Captain, I count over 600 enemy contacts. Their armor composition is unlike anything in our database. Then we will find out what works, Jake said. All crew, remember your training. We are human beings from Earth. Our planet has been trying to kill us since before we learned to use fire. These things bleed, which means we can kill them. Engage when ready. The Defiance accelerated toward the battle, and every ship with working sensors suddenly detected the new arrival. On Admiral Kethra's command ship, alarms sounded. Admiral, unknown vessel entering the combat zone. Her sensor officer reported, his voice confused. Single ship. Classification unknown. The design does not match any species in our database. Wait. They are broadcasting on emergency channels. Jake's voice came through, translated by systems that had never been designed for human language. The words came out slightly distorted, but understandable. This is Captain Jake Morrison of the United Nations Ship Defiance, representing humanity and the planet Earth. We received your distress signals. Tell us what you need us to do. Silence filled the communication channels. Across 300 ships, thousands of alien beings stared at their displays in shock. Admiral Kethra felt her skin flash white, the color of complete surprise. Humans? She whispered, her translator barely catching the word. That is impossible. They are mythology. Stories we tell children about monsters from the Dark Ages. Her tactical officer, a young female from the Kelnar species, spoke urgently. Admiral, the Scourge is launching another attack wave. 200 fighters inbound on our left flank. Jake waited 5 seconds for a response, then made his decision. I am interpreting your silence as agreement. Defiance moving to engage hostile forces. Lieutenant Carter. Keep broadcasting friendly intentions. I do not want them shooting at us by accident. Ryan. You have weapons free. Show them what Earth can do. Ryan allowed himself a small smile as his targeting computer locked onto the first group of Scourge fighters. Aye, Captain. Engaging railgun batteries. Let's say hello. The Defiance's railguns fired, and the galaxy witnessed human weapons technology for the first time. Tungsten carbide slugs, each one the size of a human fist, accelerated to a significant fraction of light speed. No energy fields, no exotic particles, just mass and velocity turned into the ultimate weapon. The first volley destroyed 20 Scourge fighters instantly. The projectiles punched through their biomechanical armor like it was paper, continuing through multiple targets before their energy finally dissipated. The alien defenders watched in shock as a single ship accomplished what usually took squadrons to achieve. Admiral Kethra's command ship rocked from a near miss, bringing her back to the immediate situation. All ships. Support the unknown vessel. Whatever they are fighting the Scourge. That makes them allies. The Scourge adapted quickly, as they always did. Their remaining fighters changed formation and began evasive maneuvers, while their capital ships turned their attention to this new threat. Energy beams lanced across space toward the Defiance. Evasive maneuvers, pattern Whiskey 7, Jake commanded. The ship rolled and twisted with a grace that seemed impossible for something so large. The human crew had trained in simulations that assumed enemies would be faster and more advanced. They had learned to move, like prey, that fights back. Chris Palmer's fingers flew across his controls as he guided the ship through a dance of death. Captain, they are adapting to our attack vectors. I recommend we change tactics every 30 seconds. Agreed. Ryan, switch to missile pods. Let's see how they handle multiple attack types. The Defiance's missile launch tubes opened, and a swarm of smart weapons deployed. These were not the simple missiles that the alien species used. Each one had its own guidance system, its own ability to think and react. They scattered and attacked from multiple angles, forcing the Scourge to divide their defensive fire. Captain Morrison, this is Admiral Kethra. A voice finally came through on the communication channel. The image of the four-armed alien appeared on the main screen, her skin now showing orange, the color of excitement and hope. Your weapons are devastating. We have never seen kinetic projectiles used with such effectiveness. What kind of species are you? Jake glanced at Amy, who nodded to confirm the translation was accurate. Admiral, we are humans from a planet called Earth. Our world has high gravity, extreme weather, and predators that evolved alongside us. We learned to build weapons that work regardless of environment or enemy defenses. We are here to help. Quote, deathworlders, Kethra breathed, using a term that made her crew gasp. Deathworlds were planets so hostile that complex life should not be able to evolve there. The idea that a technological civilization could arise from such a world was considered theoretical, something that existed only in academic papers. Incoming missiles, over 300 contacts, announced Lieutenant Danny Brooks from the tactical station. He was young but had proven himself in combat simulations back on Earth. They are targeting our reactor signature. Point defense, full automatic, Jake ordered. Amy, ask the Admiral for tactical data on the Scourge command ship. We are going to end this quickly. The Defiance's close-in weapon systems came to life. Originally designed to protect Earth's orbital stations from debris and hostile missiles, they tracked and eliminated threats with mechanical precision. Hundreds of small-caliber rounds created a defensive web around the ship that nothing could penetrate. The alien species watching had never seen such an effective defense system. Their own point defense relied on energy fields and limited ammunition. The human system seemed to have unlimited ammunition and perfect accuracy. Captain, I have the tactical data, Amy reported. The Scourge Command Nexus is the large vessel at the center of their formation. It coordinates all the other ships through some kind of biological network. Jake studied the tactical display. The command ship was heavily defended, surrounded by escorts, and protected by layers of smaller vessels. Getting to it would mean flying through the heart of the enemy fleet, a suicide run by any normal standard. Chris, plot an intercept course. Take us right through their formation. Sir, that course puts us in range of their entire fleet, Chris replied, though his hands were already moving to comply. Good. Let them all see us. Charge the prototype weapon. It is time we field test the kinetic lance. Amy's eyes widened. Captain, that weapon has never been fired in actual combat. The energy requirements could overload our reactor. I am aware, Lieutenant. But we came here to make a difference. If we are going to introduce ourselves to the galaxy, let's make an impression they will never forget. All power to forward weapons. Ryan, target their command nexus. One shot, one kill. The Defiance's bow split open, revealing a weapon that made even the human engineers nervous. The kinetic lance was a magnetically accelerated projectile weapon that drew power from the ship's entire reactor output for a single, devastating shot. It had worked in testing, but tests and combat were very different things. Admiral Kethra watched in horror and awe as the human vessel accelerated directly into the enemy formation. They are insane. Completely and utterly insane. The kinetic lance fired, and for a brief moment, it looked like a spear of light had been thrown across space. The Scourge command ship and everything behind it for 2,000 kilometers simply ceased to exist, vaporized by the impact of a projectile moving at relativistic speeds. The Scourge fleet faltered as their command structure collapsed. The destruction of the Scourge command ship sent shockwaves through both fleets. For a moment, everything stopped. Fighters paused mid-maneuver. Capital ships held their fire. Even the chaos of battle seemed to take a breath as everyone processed what they had just witnessed. Then the Scourge fleet began to collapse. Without their central coordination, the biomechanical ships lost their cohesion. They scattered like animals who had lost their pack leader, their movements becoming erratic and uncoordinated. The Allied fleet seized the advantage immediately. All ships, press the attack, Admiral Kethra commanded, her skin flashing bright green with triumph. Do not let them regroup. For Talvoran, for the fallen civilizations, attack now. The battle became a rout. The remaining Scourge vessels tried to retreat, but the combined Allied fleet pursued them ruthlessly. Within an hour, the enemy force had been reduced to scattered survivors fleeing into the darkness of space. The Talvoran system was saved. On the bridge of the Defiance, Jake allowed himself to relax slightly. His crew had performed perfectly, but the cost had been steep. Damage report. Lieutenant Danny Brooks checked his displays, his face showing relief mixed with concern. Forward armor is at 40%. The kinetic lance overloaded 2 power conduits, but engineering has them under control. We took hits from at least 30 different weapons, but our armor held. No casualties. Sir. Good work, everyone, Jake said, feeling the weight of command settle on his shoulders. They had won this battle, but he knew it was only the beginning. Amy, open a channel to Admiral Kethra. I think we need to have a longer conversation. The 4-armed alien appeared on screen, her expression unreadable to human eyes but her body language suggesting exhaustion and gratitude. Captain Morrison, your arrival saved this system. I do not know where you came from or why you helped us, but you have my eternal gratitude. We lost 70 ships today, but without you, we would have lost everything. Admiral, we came because we heard your distress calls, Jake replied honestly. Where I come from, you do not ignore someone calling for help. But I need to understand what we are fighting. What is the Scourge? And how do we stop them permanently? Kethra's skin shifted to a thoughtful purple. We do not fully understand them ourselves. They appeared 6 months ago, from unknown space, beyond the edges of our explored galaxy. They are a hive mind, biological ships controlled by a single consciousness. They consume entire worlds, taking resources and incorporating other species into their collective. We have never encountered anything like them before. Jake exchanged glances with his senior officers. A hive mind explained the coordination, but it also meant this war would be harder than they thought. How many systems have they attacked? Minus. How many systems have they attacked? Talvoran was the 4th major assault, Kethra replied. 3 civilizations have already fallen completely. The Scourge is moving toward the core worlds, where most of the galactic population lives. If they are not stopped, billions will die. The weight of that number settled over the bridge. Jake had fought in wars on Earth, had seen cities burn and nations fall. But this was different. This was a threat to entire species, to civilizations that had existed for thousands of years. Admiral, we need to meet with your leaders, Jake said. Earth has more ships, more weapons, and tactics that might help. But we need to coordinate. We need to understand each other. The Galactic Council is convening in 3 days at Station Omega, Kethra replied. I will personally sponsor your attendance. Captain, I must warn you though, the Council includes 47 species, and most of them are terrified of the Scourge. When they see what your weapons can do, some will be grateful, others will be afraid of you. Under 9. Jake nodded slowly. Fear is something we understand, Admiral. Humans have been afraid of each other for our entire history. We learned to work together despite that fear. We will find a way to work with your council. The communication ended, and Jake turned to find his entire bridge crew looking at him with a mixture of pride and worry. They had just made first contact with alien species, fought in an interstellar battle, and committed Earth to a war they barely understood. It was a lot to process. Captain, we are receiving a priority transmission from Earth, Amy announced. It is from the Secretary General of the United Nations. The image of an older woman with gray hair and sharp eyes appeared on screen. Secretary General Patricia Hughes had led Earth's government for 5 years and had been the driving force behind the Defiance's mission. Captain Morrison, we received your after-action report. The entire planet is watching. You have made humanity known to the galaxy. Well done. Fourth, Mater, well done. Thank you, Madam Secretary, Jake replied formally. But we have a situation. The threat is bigger than we anticipated. We need more ships, more resources, and we need them quickly. We need them quickly, Patricia nodded, her expression serious. We anticipated this possibility. The Mars shipyards have been working at full capacity since you left. We have 15 more ships ready to launch, with another 30 under construction. They will be armed with the weapon systems you just field tested. How long do we have? Unknown. But probably not long, Jake said. The enemy is a hive mind that learns and adapts. They have already destroyed 3 civilizations. If we do not act quickly, they will overwhelm the galaxy's defenses. Then we act, Patricia said simply. Captain, you are hereby promoted to Commodore and given command of the 1st Expeditionary Fleet. Your mission is to integrate our forces with the Alien Alliance and stop this threat. Earth is counting on you. The transmission ended, leaving Jake to absorb his new responsibilities. Around him, his crew worked to repair the damage from battle and prepare for what came next. In engineering, teams were already analyzing the scourge weapons they had recorded, looking for weaknesses. In medical, doctors treated minor injuries and prepared for worse to come. 3 days later, the UNS Defiance approached Station Omega. The massive structure was built in the shape of a wheel, spinning slowly to create artificial gravity. Ships from dozens of different species were docked at its many ports, each one unique in design and purpose. Captain, we are being hailed by Station Control, Amy reported. They are asking for our species designation and clearance codes. Tell them we are human representatives from Earth, here at the invitation of Admiral Kethra, Jake replied. And Amy, from now on, we need to be careful with every word. We are speaking for our entire species. The docking procedure took an hour, during which time Jake and his diplomatic team prepared for the meeting. Ambassador Karen Wright joined them from her quarters. She was a skilled negotiator who had helped prevent 3 wars on Earth. Now, she would try to navigate the politics of an entire galaxy. Remember, we know nothing about their customs or protocols, Karen reminded everyone. Let them speak first. Observe their body language. And do not make promises we cannot keep. We are here to make allies, not enemies. The delegation left the ship and entered the station. The corridors were filled with beings that looked like they had stepped out of science fiction stories. Some walked on 2 legs, others on 4 or 6. Some breathed the same air as humans, while others wore environmental suits. Some had skin, others had scales, or feathers, or things Jake had no name for, but all of them stopped and stared as the humans walked past. Word of the battle had spread, and everyone wanted to see the species that had destroyed a Scourge command ship with a single shot. The council chamber was enormous, designed to hold hundreds of representatives. Jake and his team were escorted to a platform that rose from the floor, putting them on display for everyone to see. The room fell silent as they entered. Elder Vrensha, the energy being who led the council, pulsed with light that that the translation system rendered as speech. You claim to be human, a species we thought existed only in ancient mythology. Explain yourselves. Jake stepped forward, keeping his voice calm and clear. Elder, we are as surprised as you are. Earth has no records of contact with galactic civilization. We have been alone on our world, thinking we were the only intelligent life in the universe. 6 months ago, we developed faster than light travel. We heard your distress calls and came to help. A murmur ran through the chamber. Commander Zex Thor, the crystalline warrior who had first called for help, spoke up. The ancient archives describe humans as a species of warriors from a death world. They say your kind thrived on conflict and turned your entire civilization toward conquest. Are these stories true? Jake considered his answer carefully. Commander, humans have fought many wars. We have made terrible mistakes and committed acts we deeply regret. But we have also learned from those mistakes. We built a united world government to prevent future wars. We developed technology to heal our planet's damage. We chose to reach for the stars not as conquerors, but as explorers. Yes, we know how to fight. Our world taught us that. But we also know when to stop fighting and start building. Ryan Foster, who had accompanied the delegation as a technical advisor, added his thoughts. Our weapons are effective because we have spent 10,000 years surviving on a hostile planet and fighting each other. We learned to maximize every advantage, to build tools that work in any environment, but those same skills that make us dangerous also make us adaptable. We can help you fight the scourge because we understand conflict in ways that peaceful species might not. Admiral Kethra entered the chamber, her skin showing respectful gold. Honored Council, I witnessed the humans in battle. They destroyed more enemy ships in 1 hour than my entire fleet managed in 3. Their technology is different from ours, but it is effective. More importantly, they came to help without being asked, without demanding payment or territory. They risked their lives for species they had never met. That speaks to their character more than any ancient archive. The debate continued for hours as species argued about whether to trust humanity. The council debate raged on through the station's artificial day and into its night cycle. Jake and his delegation stood on their platform, answering questions and defending humanity's presence, while species they had never heard of argued about their fate. Some wanted to embrace Earth as an ally. Others demanded the humans be quarantined again, locked away before they could disrupt galactic society. Ambassador Karen Wright handled most of the diplomatic exchanges, her years of experience showing as she navigated the complex politics. But Jake could see the strain on her face. They were one species trying to convince 47 others to trust them, all while a genocidal enemy continued to advance across the galaxy. Finally, Elder Vrensha called for order. The chamber fell silent as she pulsed with light that seemed to fill the entire space. We have debated long enough. The scourge does not stop while we argue. I propose we vote on 2 matters. First, whether to grant humanity provisional membership in the Galactic Council. Second, whether to accept their military assistance against the scourge. Commander Zex Thor stood, his crystalline body refracting the chamber's light into rainbow patterns. I accessed the sealed archives, the ones we opened when the crisis began. I found records about humans that go beyond simple mythology. A holographic display appeared in the center of the chamber, showing ancient text in languages that predated most current civilizations. Zex Thor continued speaking, his voice heavy with meaning. 10,000 years ago, there was another crisis. An enemy called the Harvesters threatened the galaxy. According to these records, humanity led the defense. They coordinated fleets from 20 species, developed new weapons, and ultimately defeated the Harvesters at great cost. The chamber erupted in shocked conversation. Jake felt his heart race as he listened to the translation. Earth had been part of the galactic community before? Then why did they have no memory of it? The archives also contain a second document, Zex Thor said, his tone becoming darker. After the war, The surviving species held a secret council. They feared humanity's military power, feared what such a warlike species might do in peacetime. So, they made a decision. They quarantined Earth's solar system, wiped all records of humanity from public databases, and left them to develop in isolation. They hoped humans would destroy themselves or never achieve space travel again. Silence fell over the chamber like a blanket. Karen Wright's face had gone pale, but her voice remained steady when she spoke. You are telling us that our ancestors fought and died to save the galaxy, and your response was to erase us from history? To condemn us to 10,000 years of isolation? Elder Vrensha's light dimmed, a sign of shame among her species. The decision was made by our predecessors, not us. But, yes, that appears to be what happened. The species of that era were traumatized by the war. They saw humanity's effectiveness in combat and concluded you were too dangerous to integrate into peaceful society. Jake felt anger building in his chest, but he forced it down. Getting emotional would not help their situation. How many civilizations fell to the scourge because we were not there to help? How many lives were lost because you locked us away out of fear? No one had an answer to that question. The weight of it hung in the air, undeniable and damning. A new voice spoke up, belonging to a serpentine creature whose translator rendered her speech as feminine. What is done cannot be undone. The question now is what we do moving forward. The humans are here. The scourge is advancing. We can continue debating the past, or we can focus on survival. Well said, Counselor Shores. Vrensha agreed. Let us vote. All those in favor of granting humanity provisional membership in the Galactic Council, signal now. The vote was displayed on the holographic screens throughout the chamber. Jake watched as the numbers climbed, species making their choice. When the final count appeared, it was unanimous. Every single species had voted yes. The motion passes, Vrensha announced. Earth and her colonies are now provisional members of the Galactic Council. Ambassador Wright, Captain Morrison, welcome. Karen allowed herself a small smile, but Jake noticed her hands were shaking slightly. They had just achieved something incredible, but it felt hollow, knowing the history behind it. The second vote, on accepting military assistance, also passed unanimously. The Council was desperate enough to accept help from anyone, even the species they had once feared. As the session ended, Admiral Kethra approached the human delegation. You should know that not everyone is happy about this decision. Some species voted yes, out of desperation, not trust. You will need to prove yourselves over time. We understand, Karen replied. Trust is earned, not given. We will show the galaxy that humanity has changed since the days of the harvesters. Later that night, Jake stood in his quarters on the Defiance, unable to sleep. Amy Carter knocked on his door and entered when he called out permission. She carried a datapad and looked excited despite the late hour. Captain, you need to see this. I have been working with the station's archivists, and they gave me access to more of the sealed records. There is something here about a vault that requires human DNA to open. Jake sat up, interested. Where is this vault? On this station. In the oldest section. The archivists say it has been sealed since the quarantine was implemented. No one has been able to open it, because there were no humans to provide the genetic key. Then let us go open it, Jake said, already reaching for his uniform jacket. Wake up, Karen and Ryan. If this vault contains information about our ancestors, we all should be there. An hour later, the four humans stood in a forgotten corridor deep in the station's core. The walls here were made of materials that predated everything else on the station, built with technology that the current galactic species had lost. At the end of the corridor was a door marked with symbols that the translation software identified as ancient human writing. It says, "For those who return." Amy translated. Captain, there is a genetic scanner here. Jake placed his hand on the scanner and felt a slight tingle as it read his DNA. For a moment, Nothing happened. Then the door slid open, with a sound that suggested it had not moved in 10,000 years. Inside was a small chamber with a single pedestal. On the pedestal was a holographic projector, still functioning after all this time. Jake activated it, and an image appeared. It was a human woman in a military uniform that looked similar to modern designs but with subtle differences. If you are seeing this, it means humanity made it back to the stars, the hologram said. Her voice was clear despite the centuries, filled with emotion. My name is Captain Lisa Bennett of the UNS Horizon. I am recording this message in the year 2247, using your calendar. The war against the harvesters is over. We won, but the cost was terrible. 15 billion humans died fighting to save species who are now too afraid to remember us. The hologram's image flickered as Lisa continued. The Council has voted to quarantine Earth. They think we are too violent, too dangerous. They do not understand that we fought so hard because we value life, not because we enjoy death. They are going to erase us from their history, turn us into myths and warnings. But I know humanity. We do not give up. We do not stay down. Someday, somehow, our descendants will reach the stars again. Lisa's expression became determined. To whoever is watching this, whether you are my direct descendants or just someone curious about the past, know this: humanity was never the monster they painted us to be. We were explorers, scientists, artists, and yes, warriors when necessary. We saved this galaxy once, and they repaid us with exile. Do not make the same mistakes we did. Do not trust blindly, but do not let fear rule you either. Show them what humanity really means. Make us proud. 8. The hologram faded, leaving the 4 humans standing in silence. Jake felt tears on his face and did not bother to wipe them away. Their ancestors had sacrificed everything for a galaxy that betrayed them. Captain, there is more in here, Ryan said, exploring the chamber. Data storage devices, weapon schematics, tactical information from the Harvester War. This is a treasure trove of information. Copy everything, Jake ordered. Send it back to Earth and share it with the Council. If our ancestors fought that war, then their knowledge belongs to everyone. Karen placed a hand on Jake's shoulder. What Lisa said at the end, about making them proud. We can do that. We can show the galaxy that humanity learned from the past. Yes, Jake agreed. But first, we need to win this war. The Scourge is not going to wait while we process our feelings about ancient history. Amy, I want you to analyze those tactical records. If the Harvesters were anything like the Scourge, there might be strategies we can use. They returned to the Defiance as the station's day cycle began again. News of the Vault's discovery spread quickly through both the human crew and the alien delegates. The Council's decision to quarantine Earth was no longer a secret. Some species felt shame for what their ancestors had done. Others argued that the decision had been reasonable, given the circumstances. But everyone agreed that dwelling on the past would not help them survive the present. 3 days after the Council vote, the first reinforcements from Earth arrived. 15 warships, each one armed with the weapons that had proven so effective at Talvoran. Dropped out of slip drive at the edge of Station Omega, Jake watched from the observation deck as they formed up, thinking about the responsibility that came with commanding them. Commodore Morrison, the fleet is reporting ready for your orders, Amy announced. She still was not used to using his new rank, and honestly, neither was Jake. Tell them to dock and await briefing, Jake replied. We have a lot of work to do. We need to integrate our tactics with the alien fleets, share technology, and prepare for the next Scourge attack. Because they will come again. That much is certain. As he spoke, another message arrived from Earth. 30 more ships would be ready within a month. The entire planet was mobilizing for war, putting aside old conflicts to face this new threat together. Humanity was doing what it did best, adapting to survive. 6 weeks after humanity's arrival at Station Omega, The combined fleet gathered at the edge of the Kepler system. 50 human warships formed up alongside 200 vessels from 30 different alien species. It was the largest military force the galaxy had seen in 4,000 years, and everyone knew this battle would determine the fate of entire civilizations. Commodore Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UNS Defiance, watching his tactical display with careful attention. The Scourge had established a forward base in the Kepler system, using it as a staging ground for attacks deeper into Council territory. Intelligence reports said they had at least 500 ships there, including new command carriers that were even more dangerous than the ones they had fought before. All human vessels reporting ready, Amy Carter announced from her station. She had been promoted to commander and now served as Jake's second in command. The past weeks had been intense, training crews and coordinating with alien forces who had very different ideas about combat. Admiral Kethra's face appeared on the communication screen. Her skin was showing battle red, the color her species displayed when preparing for combat. Commodore Morrison, our forces are in position. The plan is sound, but I must ask one more time. Are you certain about leading the vanguard? The human ships will take the heaviest fire. I am certain, Admiral, Jake replied. Our ships are built for this. We come from a world that tried to kill us every day. Our armor is designed to take punishment, and our weapons are made to hit hard. Let us do what we do best. The plan was simple in concept, but difficult in execution. The human ships would punch through the Scourge defensive lines, drawing their attention and creating openings for the alien forces to exploit. It was dangerous, potentially suicidal. But it played to humanity's strengths. Lieutenant Brooks, status on the weapon systems? Jake asked. Danny Brooks looked up from the tactical console, his young face showing confidence earned through weeks of constant drilling. All railguns charged and ready. Missile pods are fully loaded. The kinetic lance has been upgraded based on data from the Talvoran battle. We can fire it twice before needing to recharge, instead of just once. Good. Chris, how is our navigation? Chris. 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 Chris Palmer flexed his fingers over his controls. All slip drive systems are functioning perfectly, sir. I have 3 different escape routes plotted in case we need to withdraw quickly. We will not get trapped. Jake nodded, satisfied. His crew had become veterans over the past weeks, training constantly and learning from every encounter with Scourge scouts. They were ready. The fleet began its advance, moving in a formation that combined human and alien tactics. The heavy human warships took point, their thick armor and powerful weapons forming a spearhead. Behind them came the alien vessels, ready to provide supporting fire and exploit any openings. Enemy contacts, multiple ships emerging from the planet's gravity well, Amy reported, counting over 600 vessels, including 3 of the new command carriers. The Scourge fleet moved to intercept, their biomechanical ships pulsing with that sickly green light that marked their technology. They had adapted since the Battle of Talvoran, Jake noticed. Their formations were tighter, their movements more cautious. They had learned to fear human weapons. All ships, engage at will, Jake commanded. Show them that fear was justified. The battle erupted across the system like a storm of fire and fury. Human railguns hammered the Scourge lines with devastating kinetic strikes, while alien energy weapons burned through organic armor. The defenders had learned from humanity's example and were using combined arms tactics that made them far more effective. The Defiance led the charge, its weapons blazing. Ryan Foster coordinated fire from 3 ships at once, his tactical genius turning individual vessels into a unified killing force. Scourge fighters swarmed around them like angry insects, but the human point defense systems cut them down with mechanical efficiency. Direct hit on our port armor, Danny called out as the ship rocked from enemy fire. Armor holding at 60%. Minor damage to secondary power systems. Keep firing, Jake ordered. Chris, take us deeper. We need to get within range of those command carriers. The Defiance dove into the heart of the enemy formation, and the other human ships followed. It was insane by the standards of traditional galactic warfare, but humans had never been traditional. They had learned to fight on a world where caution meant death and aggression meant survival. Admiral Kethra watched from her command ship, her 4 arms working frantically to coordinate the alien forces. The humans are drawing incredible fire, but their armor is holding. All ships, follow them in. Do not let them fight alone. The combined fleet pushed forward, and the Scourge began to falter. For all their adaptability, they had never faced an enemy that willingly charged into their strongest defenses. The hive mind controlling them struggled to respond to tactics that seemed to violate every principle of self-preservation. "Commodore, we have a problem," Amy said urgently. "Our long-range sensors are detecting another Scourge fleet entering the system from the outer edge. Over 300 ships, and they are moving to cut off our retreat." Jake felt his stomach drop. They were about to be trapped between 2 enemy forces. "Get me a fleet-wide channel. All ships, now." His voice broadcast across every vessel in the combined fleet. "All forces. This is Morrison. We have enemy reinforcements coming from the outer system. We have 2 choices. We can retreat now and give up this system. Or we can finish what we started and destroy their base before the reinforcements arrive. I vote we finish it. Earth did not send us here to run from a fight." Admiral Kethra's response came immediately. "The Council fleet agrees. We finish this together. Then we need to move fast," Jake said. "Ryan, charge both kinetic lances. We are going to take out all 3 command carriers simultaneously." "Sir, firing both lances will drain our reactor completely," Ryan warned. "We will be defenseless for at least 5 minutes while the systems recharge. 5 minutes is all we need if those carriers are gone. Do it." The Defiance accelerated toward the nearest command carrier, while 2 other human ships targeted the remaining ones. Around them, the battle raged with intensity that pushed every system to its limits. Ships exploded on both sides, turning space into a debris field of twisted metal and organic matter. "Firing solution locked," Ryan announced. "All 3 ships ready to fire on your command, Commodore." Jake watched the tactical display, waiting for the perfect moment. The command carriers were moving into formation, trying to coordinate a counterattack. If they succeeded, the combined fleet would be torn apart. But if the humans could take them out, "Fire," Jake ordered. 3 kinetic lances fired simultaneously, their devastating projectiles crossing the battlefield faster than the eye could follow. The first command carrier was struck dead center and simply disintegrated. The second took a glancing hit that tore off half its mass. The third tried to dodge but was too slow, the projectile punching through its core and triggering a chain reaction that destroyed it from within. The Scourge fleet's coordination collapsed instantly. Without their command carriers, the individual ships reverted to simple attack patterns that were easy to predict and counter. The combined fleet tore through them with renewed vigor. "Commodore, the enemy reinforcements are still incoming," Amy warned. "They will be in weapons range in 8 minutes. "Then we have 8 minutes to finish this," Jake replied. "All ships, concentrate fire on the enemy base installations on the planet's surface. I want them destroyed before we have to withdraw." The fleet's combined firepower turned toward the planet, and within minutes, the Scourge installations were burning ruins. Whatever they had been building there was gone, along with their ability to use the system as a staging ground. "Enemy reinforcements entering weapons range," Danny announced. 320 ships inbound. "All ships, begin withdrawal," Jake commanded. "Formation, Delta. Fighting retreat. Make them pay for every meter." The combined fleet pulled back, their ships forming defensive screens while they moved toward the slip drive jump point. The Scourge reinforcements pursued, but they were cautious now, having seen what happened to their comrades. They attacked with long-range weapons, testing the Allied defenses rather than committing to a full assault. "Sir, our reactor is back to full power," Ryan reported. "Good, because we are about to need them. Chris, How long until we can jump? 30 seconds, sir. We need to clear the planet's gravity well. Reens. We need to clear the planet's gravity well. Reens. Weens. 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 Those 30 seconds felt like an eternity as Scourge fire hammered against their armor. But the Defiance held, as did the other ships in the fleet. When Chris finally announced they were clear, the entire fleet activated their slip drives simultaneously and vanished from the system. They emerged at a rally point 3 light-years away, damaged but victorious. The Kepler system was denied to the Scourge, and the combined fleet had proven they could work together effectively. Jake slumped in his command chair, feeling the exhaustion of constant combat catch up with him. Damage report. Multiple hull breaches. Armor down to 30%. 2 railguns offline, Danny listed. But we are still flying, sir. Engineering says they can have us combat ready again in 72 hours. Make it 48, Jake replied. The Scourge will not wait for us to rest. Admiral Kethra contacted them an hour later, after both fleets had finished initial damage assessments. Commodore Morrison, we lost 43 ships today, but we destroyed over 700 Scourge vessels and eliminated their forward base. It was a victory, though a costly one. Every victory against them is costly, Jake agreed. But we are learning. They adapt, but so do we. The question is whether we can adapt faster than they can. That him. There is something else you should know, Kethra said, her skin showing a color Jake had learned meant concern. We intercepted Scourge communications during the battle. Our linguists are still analyzing them, but it appears the hive mind is aware of humanity now. It considers you a primary threat. Good, Jake replied with grim satisfaction. Let them be afraid. They have been terrorizing this galaxy for months. Time they learned what fear feels like. The fleet returned to Station Omega for repairs and resupply. Earth sent another wave of ships, bringing the human contingent up to 80 vessels. Other species also increased their contributions. Inspired by the victory at Kepler, 2 months after the battle, Ambassador Karen Wright addressed the full Galactic Council. Jake stood beside her, along with Admiral Kethra and Commander Zeexthor. The chamber was packed with representatives from every member species. Honored Council, we have proven that the Scourge can be defeated, Karen said, her voice carrying to every corner of the vast space. But victory will require more than just military force. It will require trust, cooperation, and a commitment to defending each other, regardless of our differences. Elder Vrensha pulsed with agreement. Ambassador Wright speaks truth. The humans have shown us that species we once feared can become our greatest allies. Perhaps it is time we learned from the past rather than repeating it. The Council voted on a new initiative. Full technology, sharing between all member species, combined military commands, and the establishment of a joint research program to develop new weapons against the Scourge. It was unprecedented cooperation, born from necessity, but growing into something more. Jake found himself thinking about Captain Lisa Bennett's message from 10,000 years ago. She had told future humans to show the galaxy what humanity really meant. As he looked around the council chamber at species working together, sharing knowledge and resources, he thought maybe they were finally doing that. The war against the Scourge continued for another year. There were victories and defeats, moments of triumph and tragedy, but slowly, steadily, the combined forces of the Galactic Council pushed the enemy back. Humanity's weapons and tactics, combined with alien technology and knowledge, created a military force unlike anything the galaxy had seen. In the end, it was a human scientist named Dr. Helen Park who discovered the Scourge's weakness. The hive mind required specific quantum frequencies to maintain cohesion across their fleet. Disrupt those frequencies, and they became just individual ships with no coordination. The final battle took place in the Andromeda sector, where the Scourge had gathered their remaining forces for one last desperate push. The combined fleet of over 1,000 ships faced them with humanity's new quantum disruptor weapons. When those weapons activated, the Scourge fleet simply fell apart, their ships going dark as the hive mind collapsed. Jake watched from the bridge of the Defiance as the last enemy vessel was destroyed. 2 years of constant warfare were finally over. They had lost thousands of ships and millions of lives, but they had won. "It is over," Amy said softly, disbelief in her voice. "No," Jake corrected gently. "This war is over. But our work is just beginning. Now, we have to build a galaxy worth the sacrifices we made to save it." Earth celebrated for a week when the news arrived. Humanity had proven themselves to the galaxy, not as conquerors or monsters, but as defenders and allies. The myths and fears had been replaced with respect and friendship. 10 years later, Jake retired from military service and became Earth's ambassador to the Galactic Council. He watched as human and alien children played together on Station Omega, as scientists from a dozen species worked side by side in research facilities, as traders and artists and dreamers shared ideas across the stars. Humanity was no longer folklore or legend. They were real. They were known. And they were home among the stars, where they had always belonged.